Okay, so the idea was to play a little with source generators. And Martin and me, we both did to a certain degree already before. Like I said, I would assume we're by far no experts, except, let's say, I would say we have a bit of experience setting this thing up, at least. So
Yeah.
Roslyn part might be tricky for us, and we're probably might take some time getting through. But for the setup in general, we already had some experience. Maybe
Getting at least something to work. So what's actually our goal for tonight?
My goal was, and I mean, I'm open for other suggestions, but my goal was actually, if you let me get back to maybe just to draft something here. My goal was something like, let's say we have a class and it's called like calculator, and then somewhere we have the constructor, right? And now this is an artificial example, but we have a logger and maybe we also have a iMath interface, something like that. Now, if we unit test this thing, then the test would look something like this: calc test. Let's some abbreviation there, and then what I did a lot in my previous company is some basic setup, and it roughly looked like this. So we have this we have a test fixture, which I haven't written unit tests for so long. But anyway, we have a test fixture which is executed once per test, right? And this is called create subject, something like that. And then for each test, so we have a bunch of tests here, tests, blah, 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 and they have attributes, of course, but that doesn't matter so much. So we have plenty of tests here. And then we have a, well, it could also be private, but we have a calculator, and it's called SUT, so subject under test. And then what we also did was to set up a lot of mocks for those other things that need to be injected into the constructor, like iLogger and math in this case. Math. Let's do the math here. And then here, this is all boilerplate. It would be logger, fake it easy, for instance. That was what I used back then. And then fake, something like that, iLogger. And the same for math. Here iMath. And then SUT equals calculator, logger, and math. And interesting.
So that's basically boilerplate code that we have to do for any class, right?
That is boilerplate, exactly. Yeah. And even more so, what's really annoying is well, it's bearable. But what is a bit annoying is as soon as you add another parameter here, like what could we add? iUniverse. Adding the universe. Then you have to go here and do the exact same thing. And again,
probably many times, since we maybe have compartmentalized our calculator into different like partials. I see, yeah. So also just checking if my mic is better. Okay, yeah, I can try.
Oops.
Adjusting the gain a little and turning off something different.
But I must say, for me,
you guys let me know if it gets better.
But I must say, for me, it sounds okay. But yeah, I'm not watching the stream at the same time. So Yeah, so that would be the idea, and to take this and generate it into, well, it would probably be a partial calc test, and have this generated. Martin told me yesterday how to generate it, right? Like this.
Yep. And I think I found my microphone setting.
Sounds way better now.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So we start with our auto-generated
But
stuff.
back
It's
to
too loud?
yeah, it's too much gain.
Fuck. Oh. Okay. Let's try again.
Now it's perfect. At least sounds so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to use this NVIDIA broadcast stuff, but it needs some setting up to do.
Is that removes the background noise?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, so I can actually use my computer, and you shouldn't hear the fans. So okay, so we can use C# source generators now, right? To generate all this stuff.
Yeah. And
so we would just write this test class, and somehow tell like our piece of logic that it should generate this partial class for our test, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
and then here we have access to the logger and could say, I forgot, how is it written? I think call to something like that, and then logger, I don't know, write, etc. That's how you would use it then. But that's the custom test logic.
Yeah. So then the question is, how do we actually tell this generator that we actually want this class to be generated? Do we need like an interface, an attribute? Or just some convention?
Attribute sounds good. Otherwise, what would also be sufficient at first is to look out for the partial attribute, and then maybe check. Another thing is check if this type actually exists. So if I write this completely like test, sorry, calculator test and calculator. Let's say this is in a namespace and it's called company and then calculator. That, and the test would be company tests calculator tests calculator test. Then yeah, some kind of heuristic would be if you take the namespace from the test, which is partial, and remove all the tests and test suffixes, and if that type then exists, then generate good stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. What I did when I first tried generators is I was using attributes, which turned out to be actually quite difficult because you somehow need to inject a DLL that actually contains the attribute that you can reference in the source, but which you may not want to end up in your dependency graph. So there was like this flag that you can set on attributes that it shouldn't land in the actual compiled output. So this is what also JetBrains annotations uses.
Yeah.
So that you don't get it in the output. But that ended up being difficult. So I believe that was like 2 or 3 projects just to get everything up and running. So if you can do this, yeah. Patrick also suggests a mark interface, which is basically the same problem. You need to ship the interface somehow in an additional assembly. The difference is you can get rid of attributes during compilation. You can't really get rid of marker interfaces, so they'll stay. But at least the marker interface would probably just be in the test.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, for you, and maybe this is interesting to see. Let me switch to my Windows machine, and And I also have checked out your data builder generator. So that is the thing that Martin did before with source generator. So maybe we can have a quick look at it. I hope it works and I didn't mess so much around with it. But here in this case, we have a marker interface, which is generate data builder.
Marker attribute in this case, but yeah.
Attribute, yeah. And as soon, and I hope everything works because this is still like under test, year of birth, for instance, and I have get set, I have get a setter, and I would probably also need to
add it in the constructor.
By the way, this is very interesting. I reported this also because I'm preparing the blog post for source generators, and look at that. So if there's an address, then here it suggests suggests. Oh my god, Alt Enter doesn't work.
Control dot maybe. I also mess up the
yeah. I think I know what
settings all the time.
Resume. Yeah, because I'm also going back and forth, and sometimes it even doesn't work with Visual Studio. So I'm really excited if this will work after today, like reliably. But the thing here is what I wanted to show is now you can see there's a quick fix to initialize the property address. And I also tried it with int, and for int, there's no quick fix.
Yeah, because int has a default value, so it doesn't trigger the uninitialized non-nullable reference type analysis.
Okay. But I must say, I would still like to see a quick fix here. Well, anyway, now we have the address, and just by providing this property here, what happens is that here we end up with this builder method, which is called with address, and we can provide the address. That is what Martin did. Yeah, and looks really cool, I must say. I mean, you provide your DTOs and just give the structure basically.
Yeah. The reason I actually built this is just to make it a bit easier to write unit tests, because we have a lot of like business data structures that we have defaults for, so can like use default address dot without city dot with city something dot build. So I can do my basic test setup and then just set the things I want to test in one line in the test setup. So I can have like my default customer, but like without a billing address build, and have a specialized test for that. So that turned out to be quite useful. Yeah, I believe there's a bug.
Yeah. I was. I mean, it took some time yesterday figuring that out. Why it failed? Because I tried different ways of adding the property, and then at some point I'm like, okay, now it's done. But yeah.
So this is the one way that it actually works, and since we're mostly only using it on things that we put into Entity Framework, and we usually don't have read-only fields or read-only properties, this is just a bare minimum viable version that works in my use case.
I was also that is. I mean, we can already look at it. So you also have this separate project here, which is called attributes. That is the place where you put the attribute, which is then referenced, and you have this conditional, which prevents it from being compiled into the final assembly.
Unless you have like a profile that's not debug release, or you call it code generation, then it would end up. So if you just put something in there that nobody will ever use, then you're fine.
One thing that's in, or maybe the next step we could do is to look at the actual interface that we need to implement. So this is the I source generator. That's the interface that we need to provide, and how our source generator is going to be implemented. Yeah, I'm not a seasoned Visual Studio user. You can tell pretty quickly. Which has two methods. First is initialize, second is execute. Initialize, I was checking the documentation a bit. I'm still not quite sure if that's how it is, but initially let's maybe skip this. But the execute step right here, this is the thing where you get a context, and maybe I switch to my implementation for now. Should be a bit easier. This is the place where we get access to the compilation, and the compilation object basically provides us with the complete source code, right? With information about the project. Even, I mean, we could even access things from the CS project file. So all those properties and item groups, we have access to that. And here, what I basically do is to get all the types in that assembly. It takes a bit to get used with that stuff, but yeah, I for instance also worked with the ReSharper SDK before, and a few things seem very familiar, I must say.
Yeah, I guess there's only quite a few ways to build a compiler right now.
Yeah. Something that's interesting about this, or let's continue. So that part we can ignore for now, but what I want to focus is this part here. The source builder is basically just string builder. I've seen you use proper Roslyn APIs to build the source, right? Which is interesting. It's probably debatable, but maybe we can jump into that after we finish with the
So yeah, maybe let's stick with building strings for now.
And then there's this source text from, and which it gets a text, and I don't know exactly for what it is, but it's getting wrapped into another source text type. And then we can basically add source, and usually you would provide a context information, so a context name about the origin, how the source was generated. So this is important if you keep in mind that there may be more source generators, not just one, just to know who.
Also, you can add multiple source files as well. So potentially you could add one from every test.
And that too, right? And then
of course our debug method, write all text.
What's interesting also is I think until RC1 of the SDK, I had to do this if I wanted to check what the generated source looks like. I was writing it to disk all by myself.
Same. So I guess they added this functionality to actually write it out to disk.
Yeah,
from Roslyn.
They did that, and it looks roughly like this. So there's an emit compiler generated files with value true, or that you have to set true, and I'm not exactly sure, but there should be a default, but I forgot where this default exactly is. So I overwrote I've overwritten the default as well, and then put it into generated files. And that you can also see. So here in the test project, generated files, they have, I think, this directory. The first one is added from the infrastructure. then the next is probably the full type name.
Yeah.
And the file itself is then the name that we provided. So sync method generator is basically let's go back, this right
The
here.
type name. Yeah, right. Looks good.
And here we can also see this is what I came up with. Probably very wrong. So what it does is to take an async method and make it synchronous. And I already read this is quite wrong, but for testing purpose, it was okay.
Sync or async, right? So maybe we can add our calculator.
Yeah, let's go back.
Just to stick with our example.
Well, basically what we can do is clean up. I forgot to do this, but we can clean up this existing project a little. And by the way, this is something I should point out. So for everyone who likes to try this, and custom source generators. I'll also paste the link into the chat. Here you go. Okay, so this is the main method. What I usually do is to have this little test project. I saw you came up with proper integration tests.
Yeah, but so I actually use this integration test set, but I have no idea if that's correct. I just found a way to somehow make it work and not crash Visual Studio all the time. If I had exceptions. Also, this was the only way I could actually debug it, because if I ran it from my integration test, I can actually set a breakpoint.
Ah, okay. Well, how does that work then?
I was loading basically an instance of Roslyn, but it was like super ugly.
Where are you doing that?
I believe it's in data builder tests. Yep. And this basically creates a source file, then creates this host.
Oh.
Creates a project, creates analyzer references to some assemblies, creates this ad hoc workspace for Roslyn. And somehow in get compilation async, it will get the compilation, and somewhere in this emit line, it will run the generator. And since this is all in process of the test, you can actually set a breakpoint in the generator in here. But to be honest, I don't really know if that's the best way out there, because I wrote this basically 2 weeks after source generators were available in the first public releases. So not a lot of documentation out there. And yeah, it kind of worked. I'm also not sure if this loader that I had to write is actually a good idea or not. Because just getting all the references to assemblies was a bit tricky.
Well, what's interesting though is source generators are treated like analyzers, right? So they are, which is a bit funny. I think they, or at least I hope that they reconsider the naming a bit, because
if we can fix if we can fix naming, then we've solved all problems. All right.
Yeah, but saying that a source generator is an analyzer sounds a bit strange. I mean, I guess you would agree, right?
Yeah, sure. But I guess this is already a pluggable architecture to get like custom code into the compiler infrastructure. So like it makes sense to extend these basically custom code that you can load into the compilation process.
Well, the
If you have to rename all the existing interfaces, yeah, it's
yeah. But
because actually what a generator can also do is actually add diagnostic information. So for example, an analyzer that could add a warning or an error. So like if we try to generate something and we can't do it, maybe because the class is not marked partial, then maybe we want to emit a warning as well. So we actually maybe want to need functions that are available to analyzers.
yeah, I would just
So-
picture a name which encompasses both. Saying, I mean, I would never, it would never appear to me to say a source generator is an analyzer. Analyze is a read operation. And yeah, I just hope I get the point about, you know, breaking APIs and all that. But for the future good, I would always vote for do renamings if they fit, if it sounds necessary, if they describe things better. But yeah.
Yeah, in Java it's called annotation processor, which is also a bit of a generic name, which is actually a source generator, but yeah.
Processor sounds better. It doesn't make this assumption about read or write.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the thing though, I mean, concluding from that, if source generators are analyzers, and that's the point that I wanted to make, they also have to be packed as like analyzers. So what I did is, or here we're in the NuGet packages directory, the global cache, and this is the. Oh, we can also browse it with the NuGet Package Explorer, maybe. This is the content from that, and here we can see we have the analyzer here. What I miss right now, no, I remember. I was about to say where's the attribute, but I remember there's a second NuGet package.
That's a different package, yeah.
Yeah. But you could you also put both of those into the same package?
So I could. The difference is you just need to select the correct version. So in this case, like I'm only supporting .NET Standard 2.0. If I were to package it like for .NET 1, .NET 2, .NET, you know, I may want to have proper TFM resolution for the actual attribute assembly. So if I just have some MS build logic that like adds a compiler reference to this assembly, I would need to make sure that this assembly can be referenced by any project. So if it's a .NET Framework project and I reference a .NET Standard 1.0 assembly, then I maybe would opt the project into like all of the .NET Standard compatibility libraries, which the project author may not expect. So maybe I want to ship a like .NET Framework slice of the attribute, which I believe is also what JetBrains Annotations does. I believe they ship a .NET 0.0 assembly just to make sure they don't create the same issue. And the analyzer itself can actually build for, I believe, .NET Standard 2.0. And
this one.
Yeah. So you may want to have different TFMs for both. And also what I did, I just added a new project based on the template for Roslyn analyzers.
What do you mean?
So in Visual Studio, what I did to create a project was add like file new project analyzer. Okay. And the way of setting up the attribute is, I believe, from Stack Overflow.
Okay, gotcha. Two things I'm curious about. The first is you have those PowerShell scripts. Is that for previous Visual Studio versions, or
yes, that's for I believe making it compatible with VS 2017, maybe even 2015.
Okay.
But yeah, all of this basically came with the template from Visual Studio.
Okay. Gotcha.
So once you add the, I believe, Visual Studio Extensibility SDK, and you get the Roslyn Analyzer templates, you get all this automatically.
This is something I actually miss. So I'm not sure, but I saw a blog post somewhere that you have a analyzer template here.
Yeah.
I don't see it, but
So if you run the Visual Studio installer, it should present you with an option to basically install this extra component.
But isn't the extensibility component, because that's installed?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So
you
if you
can-
select individual components
here
in the top,
Visual Studio extension development,
And
and
there's-
here I was searching for analyzers, and
maybe search for Roslyn. Nope. .NET Compiler Platform SDK. That's what you
it?
want. Yeah.
okay.
And actually, maybe you should install it in the background while we try to work in Rider.
Yeah, I won't do it now.
Okay.
Afterwards, then.
Because it also gives you a custom view in Visual Studio that actually shows you what your syntax tree looks like. For any open source file that you have, you can basically click on anywhere in the document, and it will show you what the syntax tree looks like for that. So that's what I used as a reference to browse syntax trees and the semantic model.
That is, I mean, I can't show it now, obviously.
Yeah.
But maybe let's see if I can get
It
to that
should
quickly.
pop up in view.
Give me a second. It's not. Let me try something. Properties and target. Be sharper internal. Okay, let's try again. Because this is, if you develop something like that, I mean, if you're working with analyzers and all that stuff, I think it's a really, how do you say, indispensable feature, right? To see how the source code is actually structured. So PSI viewer tool, no, I think it's that. Yeah. So this should be similar to what you meant, right? So I click here and it will tell me it's an identifier which belongs to a method declaration, which belongs to a class body, etc.
And I believe this is even providing you a semantic model, right? Not just a syntax model. I'm not sure. This is C#, our what's it called? Is this a Roslyn view?
This here is from ReSharper now.
Okay, but ReSharper internal types or?
Yes.
I see. Okay.
But I just wanted to show for everyone else watching how that would look like, and it's basically a tree structure. So you can also navigate here, and you can see the namespace declaration or what else. Class declaration starts here and ends somewhere else, and etc.
Nice.
That's also interesting to discover how well Roslyn might have different notions of that, but it's also interesting to see how everything is structured, like how everything is composed. Like it's like the like an interactive grammar, let's say.
Mhm.
That's what I
Yeah.
meant.
So
Okay.
also if you need to construct source code using APIs, it's also
Yeah.
helpful.
That
Also, it's very helpful because you actually learn how C# works. Like, what is an expression? What is a statement?
Yeah.
Why is there now a throw expression
exactly.
instead of just a throw statement? So interesting
Yeah.
things.
And this is something also interesting. We have on the one hand side we have the way of browsing code through the syntax, and that is actually what you did, as far as I understand, at least from the generator. So just roughly, what you do is to get all compilation units, and all compilation units are basically like documents, more or less.
Yeah.
And you have those syntax trees. I believe syntax tree will also represent like a single document, right?
Exactly. So for
Yeah.
each file, I believe you should get a syntax tree, and those should be readily available, right? If I understand the Roslyn at least API description, every time you query the semantic model, it may need to do some work behind the scenes to resolve things. If I just traverse the syntax tree, then ask the semantic model questions about the parts of the syntax tree I'm interested in, if I understand the API documentation correctly, it should be a bit faster. But I'm not sure, so if anyone in the comments knows, please tell us.
You mean working with the semantic model?
Yeah, so working with the semantic model only when I know that this part of the syntax tree is interesting to me.
I think it's the exact opposite.
Really? Interesting.
And that's interesting because I mean, for me the background is a bit different, because ReSharper has a similar model, and of course it also has its own assumptions of how things work, right? And what happens with the ReSharper model is there's a semantic model similar to, let's say, reflection, where you can ask types about what attributes they have, or what types are available in the solution. And that model is usually ready to go, because this is the model that all the features also build upon. And as soon as you're interested in a syntax tree, like you want to see something that doesn't materialize in the semantic model, then you would ask for the declarations. You would call get declarations on one of those reflection objects, or reflection-like objects, and only then the syntax tree is parsed for that document.
Interesting.
And I would assume, and it's funny that you explain it the exact opposite. So might even well be that you're correct here, but I used a different approach. You're using the syntax trees and you get all the documents basically. And what I do is, let's go back here with that, just with the initial drafts which I did here. I'm getting the assembly object here, which is a symbol. You can see it's a symbol, which is the reflection-like API. Then global namespace. Okay, something we have to do. And then get all types. Get all types is a method that I provided myself. So what it does is basically just to get all the namespaces. So here from the root namespace in the first iteration, it will get the descendants and self, and then get namespace members. So that should suffice for all nested namespaces as well. And then from all the namespace objects here, we select all the get type members. Get type members, I believe, belongs to the Roslyn API. And then from there, also another get type members, which should cover nested types as well.
Yeah.
So one thing to keep in mind here, though, is link expression or chained link statements.
Yeah.
Not exactly great. But yeah.
But it's the API they offer, right? I believe even Descendants and Self is part of the Roslyn APIs.
No,
or is that...
That's a method that I provided. And I must really say those methods here, Descendants and Descendants itself, with different overloads, those helper methods are so essential to me. If you work with nested structures, stuff like that, they are so convenient to use. So usually I always copy them over to new projects and yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's also for the project that I did, I basically copied a few extension methods from various open source projects, some even from Roslyn itself, and then changed them to fit my needs. So but yes, there's always a few of these extensions. Yeah. Also, I just had a look. What's also interesting is in that initialize method that we skipped. There's also an interesting thing we can do is that context we can actually register for changes. So I'm not sure if that is actually working now. But like if there are editor changes to the syntax tree, we can actually receive those changes and trigger actions, which is interesting. I'd suggest we stick with the semantic model for now. Mostly because it's easier, because for any given type, you will get basically the type information and not 5 places where it may be partially defined. So I guess we will be having an easier time looking at the semantic model.
I just read about this thing yesterday, and it's quite interesting. What I believe how it should work is that in this method, what you do is basically to mark which parts should be executed with this execute method. So it's like, let's say you have two steps. Well, obviously, but the first step is basically to say, okay, here I want to generate something, and that's all. That's the only responsibility this initialize method has if it uses this register for syntax notification. Because here you can check, is the attribute applied or anything like that. And in this execute method, then I believe, let's say, don't remember where, the syntax receiver, exactly. And by using that, and I think it's just a property, you can convert that to your own syntax receiver and then retrieve the information that you gathered before. But I guess it's probably to a way to make this more performant.
I believe so. So this is basically a visitor pattern, right? So you implement then, like, instead of like browsing all the syntax tree or all the semantic tree for classes that basically fit our criteria, we can basically hook into some Roslyn enumeration process and then call me when you see any class definition, and I'll decide if I want to do anything with it. But I guess that's just optimization once we get anything to work, right?
Okay, so
So-
now let's start with something.
So 15 minutes in, let's start with something.
It's 50, yeah, right. 50 minutes already, but yeah, it's important. I mean, the setup, and I guess it was the same for you with doing the also including the test project. It takes so much time
Yeah, that was the most time.
to get started with it, and implementing the whole thing with the Roslyn API. I mean, I can say with that, which I will delete now, that was the smallest time or the smallest amount of effort that I had to invest. It was
Exactly. Yeah.
all the rest.
I actually used something before to do something similar. So Andrew Arnott has this NuGet package for source generation, which basically during a build spins up an instance of Roslyn, tries to compile the code, executes custom compilation, adds it to the actual source code of the project, which is super slow, but it worked before. So if you search for Andrew Arnott, T, yeah, source generation, code generation. Code generation Roslyn, exactly.
This one, engine,
Yeah. Or
this one.
there's
yeah.
a GitHub repository behind it. Yeah, that's what I used previously, which is like the iCode generator. So you can do something similar with that, just the method is different because source generator now allows us to hook directly into the compiler, and this basically hooks into the build process. So you do like really building multiple times, which is an overhead, but
Okay.
also something that I experimented with 2 or 3 years ago.
I mean,
2 years ago.
the really interesting thing about those source generators is that they will, and that's what I showed initially. Let's go back here. Is that immediately after adding something, you get your code completion enhanced with what is actually generated, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just for those who don't know much about the IDE part of things, Visual Studio in particular has a running in-memory workspace. It's called Roslyn Workspace, and yeah, somehow the code which already is handled by the workspace will get passed to the source generator. Then the results come back, and that is incorporated into the code completion feature, basically.
Right. So maybe let's start with the calculator, right?
Okay, so I will delete.
So maybe we can just create a new generator class. I mean, we can leave that like it is, right?
I can delete it. It's fine.
Okay.
I committed before, and I will clean up after. And also, let's rename this. What do we want to call it?
Naming. Test. Box initializer
Box
generator.
generator?
Creator.
Or test setup generator?
That sounds nice, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing, like you told me, auto-generated tag.
Yeah. Because
And
any
then-
other analyzer will also see that code. So if you have like style cop or any style checks, it should ignore this file that we generate and add. Because we may not be having the same coding guidelines.
And then what do we do? First, grab all the test types. All types where name Yeah, something
Mhm.
like that ends with test.
Yep.
And maybe also, now we'll do multiple wheres here just for the sake of better debugging. We can also see if it's, we can't see if it's partial because it's the semantic model.
Yeah, we can get the syntax references and
Maybe,
check if any is. But we can maybe just start with trying to generate partial classes and then filter it out later
okay,
to
yeah.
get going.
Then we do a for each. Okay, test types for each test type, and then generate a setup test type as that. Does it look okay?
That looks fine. Maybe we want to have access to the context as well. So you can just turn it into a local method.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I like your way of structuring already.
It's like when C# introduces new features, I'm just using it like an addict.
But local function is same for me. I mean, local functions, I often use them just to avoid adding this other
Yeah.
thing, parameter that I would normally have to pass, and with those local functions, it's just made a closure then automatically for me.
Yeah. And you
that's
can
nice.
put them anywhere in the method. So I usually put it somewhere in the bottom. So
That's something that
Okay.
I don't do.
That's just style.
What does it say? So currently we can also make it static.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll probably.
that's new.
Okay, what's the next thing we do?
So I guess we need to find the constructor and the constructor arguments.
Okay, there's no constructor, but I guess we have to search for members.
I believe if you get the type symbol,
It's a
or what is it? It should have a constructors property.
let me see what the hierarchy of that is. So we have a class, no? We have an array type. Well, it doesn't look like we can use any derived type of type symbol.
Mm-hmm.
What was your suggestion again?
I should check. So at least when I used I named type symbol, I got a constructors property as well.
Right. You're right.
Right, because we didn't generate any. So if we're not considering any anonymous stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I believe what I was usually looking for was the one with the most parameters, but I guess we can just choose the first one.
But we're in the test type currently. We want the other type, right?
The other type, yeah.
Okay. Then that's going to be interesting. Let's see. So first, what I outlined before in the document here with that namespace, maybe that's something we can do already. So we just make it very simple, I guess. Implementation type name, something like that. And for that, we use the test type and get the fully qualified name. So for that, we can use a toDisplay string. And here we can define it should be fully qualified format. That will give us the fully qualified name. Afterwards, and just for the sake of simplicity, what I would suggest is to do some replacements, like tests. We replace that with string empty. We also replace test, and we can replace
like double
period with single period. Should be at least enough for the
getting
example that we have.
Right. And of course, as Patrick mentioned, something like a marker interface or marker attribute would help a lot. But if we just put it in one statement or in one project for now to get the first version running. So I guess then we need to search for this.
We need the semantic model somehow, yeah. And I believe, I'm not exactly sure.
It's in the compilation.
Here, there it was, semantic model. And we need to provide what exactly? The syntax tree.
Yeah.
Not exactly sure if that will be enough. Because semantic model syntax tree is like the model for a concrete document.
We can probably also try to resolve a type.
Is it like you did with the attribute, if I remember correctly? Like here, compilation get type by metadata name?
Yes, I believe so, but that's because I knew the exact metadata name that was already referenced. So if this stuff is coming from a different assembly, it will be found with this metadata name.
But I mean, to me, it sounds like it could still work.
Probably, if we have the fully qualified name.
It's the question if this is a try get or I mean if this will.
Yeah, it's a try get.
It's a try get.
It should return. It should return. Yeah.
Okay. Well then, let's try this. Implementation type name. And this is the implementation type.
Right.
Now something. Do we want to try this already?
Yeah. I suggest we can add comments to the generated file to see if anything pops out.
Let's try to debug this already. Okay.
Okay.
Because this was so interesting yesterday. I gotta tell you how things worked yesterday. What I usually do and before, I mean, it's not a secret. I really admire your MS Build skills. I tell this all the time, but yesterday, God damn it. Yesterday, what I tried is to find a way how to debug the whole thing with the compiler executing it.
Yeah.
And the way that I usually do it, let's go back here, is on Windows, what I can do is debugger launch. That works so well. I mean, even Visual Studio probably has something similar, but in Rider I can tell it to auto attach and load the solution. So I just write this statement, and I maybe also do .NET watch run to execute it automatically, and it will just attach. On Linux and Mac, this doesn't work. So what I use is the spin await instead. So that will keep waiting here until the debugger is attached. And then what I do is just to attach to the process.
Yeah.
And something really interesting happened, and that is I did the same thing. And as you see, here's the Visual Basic C# compiler. And when I did that, I had several cases when debugging worked, but I had to attach to different processes. And it was actually alternating. So first time I had to attach to the C# compiler, then to this one, then to C# compiler again, etc.
That's interesting.
But it turns out that that this is enough. And also quite interesting is you see the compiler is started not with this huge invocation.
Yeah, that's basically the shared compilation feature. So what this does is it spins up a few compilers. Basically, I believe there is some core count, but the idea is that the compiler would be already warm and everything should be jittered in there. So there's like no startup time. And then the compiler server, which is the VBCS compiler DLL, would actually get the request and dispatch them, if I understand it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So in the CS Proj, there's a feature called use shared compilation, which you can use to turn this off and on. Mm-hmm. So I believe there should be one CSC invocation that just submits the job and one that actually executes it and something in the middle. And I'm not sure if VBCS compiler isn't also just the thing that if it's just the IDE or if it's already... No, it should also be somehow involved in this dispatching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more familiar with it, how it works for MS Build, but I guess the process is similar. You have basically these worker nodes that are already warm, pre-jittered, and you should... At least your average .NET run should be a bit faster.
Yeah.
And this works for MS Build, for Rosalind, and also for the Razor compiler.
Yeah, that one has, and I believe there was also something in discussion, but the responsible person then left Microsoft. But there was a discussion about something like build server shutdown. So something
that should already work. Yeah,
that should already work.
Yep,
I believe. I can't look at it right now, but I believe the issue is still open because I have had it subscribed.
Interesting. So there is the shutdown command, and it should try to shut down as long as you manage to run the correct version of the .NET SDK.
Are there also shutdown command? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
But I believe it may not shut down things that have been started from Visual Studio. Something like that.
I think sorry, I was wrong. The issue that I created back then was to have something that makes this command obsolete. What I wanted, and Gradle has a similar way of doing this, is if you build that you can pass something like no servers, or almost talk German, but a way to avoid those caching, this caching infrastructure.
That's what you can use. You can use -p : use shared compilation false.
Yeah,
this is basically
but there are like 3 properties that you have to use. For Razor.
But I guess use shared compilation should affect all of them, or at least all of them except for MS Build.
Yeah, exactly.
Because MS Build doesn't yet know about what's in the project file. And I believe Razor compilation has a different one, and I'm not sure if Roslyn has a specific one, but I believe, if I understand it correctly, Roslyn and Razor should use U-sharp compilation. And for MS Build, you can pass the M attribute. So if you set M0, it will like do some heuristics on the number of cores you have. And if you set it to -M:1, then it should just run one process of MS Build, start the compiler with one invocation.
And how is node reuse related?
Node reuse. Yeah, so depending on how many nodes of MS Build you start, so if you use only one, it should leave it running as well. So if you don't want to reuse it the next time, yeah, you also need to pass node reuse false. There's even a wiki entry in the MS Build, or they converted it to a doc that tells you all these flags.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Exactly, but it's multiple flags. So what in a perfect world, what I would like to see is something like that, where it just with the flag basically define that things shouldn't be left. And this is a thing mainly for CI
system,
areas.
yeah.
That you don't leave processes running behind. Like for instance, I have this case recurringly with Bitrise, which apparently sees some processes left behind and then will timeout after 30 minutes. And that's really annoying.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you have like 2 or 3 solutions, or you have a .NET Build, a .NET Test, a .NET Pack, then it's kind of good to have some instances hanging around to shave off a few seconds. Okay. But yeah.
Back to the source generators and debugging. So what was really interesting, and I later found out that there in fact was a blog post for that. Let's open this really quickly. From Jerome, saying the exact same things. I mean, he used MS Build structured log viewer to discover this stuff, but he also found out there is a response file which is written to disk. In my case, it was at, let's go back. In my case, it was at that location. And what I did to continue and basically have debugging available is to copy the whole content of that response file, copy it over to my solution right here, there, and here if I wrap this thing, we can see all the things that are passed to the compiler. And we can even see, I mean, if we search for source generators, we can here see where does the flag start? Here. Analyzer, and then it passes the DLL.
So that's actually also a good way to just run the compiler with the necessary arguments, right? That's a nice trick.
Yeah. And then run configuration, which basically invokes the C# compiler. No config. You have this add here is mandatory. So this was not a quirk of OS X. And then the path to the response file. And the working directory should be in the same place as the project. And now, let's see if
we can try to run it.
Okay, interesting.
So
this is taking longer than it should. Definitely. But maybe it's that. Let me see. Yeah, definitely it was that. That was my mistake. That spin await is I basically just used to find the response file. Okay, breakpoints loaded. And yeah,
Compiler
hard to
starting.
say. But
Looks
it
like
looks
it finished
like
already,
it run
right?
already.
So maybe we did not find any test types because we haven't created a test yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that was me being stupid. You're completely right. Test project, program, and let's provide a test here. So
Let's create like a class and a test.
And public class calculator test. And maybe, just maybe, we can already put this in a different namespace. And it's called test project tests, like that.
Nice. maybe we want to make it partial already.
Yeah. Wait just a second. So hopefully we already hit that. Yeah. Implementation type. So project.calculator. It should be test project. Okay.
Test project, yeah.
Not bad. So that's stupid.
We can I mean we can do regex replaces. Someone who is keen on performance would probably hit us, but
let's do it just like that.
Project,
it doesn't correlate to the project now, but I would say good enough. And you wanted to make it partial, right? Now let's run again, and let's see if we can find the implementation type. Okay. And it's not. So the name's correct.
Project.calculator, it looks good. So I guess we didn't have any metadata because it's not coming from a metadata reference. But we can play with the debugger now, right? So
So context compilation. What's it called? Get type.
Yeah, I believe get type is just the.
By the way, how does it? Wait.
Did we get the correct name?
Maybe this global is at fault. So project calculator. Let's do this way. We actually get it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
because this what's it called? This prefixes is, I believe, not part of the metadata name because this only exists within like C# and the compiler setup. It's not actually the.
So what we do is just trim start and trim.
Yeah, or anything that's. Yeah, it could not be global, but let's do it like that.
What else would it? I believe for first start this is enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then let's try again. If we find something. Oh yeah. Great. Okay. So next. Let's do a bit of setup. Here in our test project, let's add
NuGet packages, right?
Yeah, fake it easy.
Yeah, of course.
But what's your favorite?
Yeah, I'm actually using Fake It Easy a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
XUnit, Fake It Easy, Fluent Assertions.
Yeah, that's my
That's my toolkit. Yeah.
triple. Okay, that looks good. And now we could already. Oh, we're not too far from succeeding, I believe.
Nice.
So we try to get the constructor, and for the sake of simplicity, let's just get one of them. Okay.
Yeah. So just the first, or default, and continue on now. Which
Maybe
you maybe
even
also
single.
should.
Maybe single or default. Let's see, yeah, default definitely, because if there is none, we could just
We don't
create
want
it.
to throw. Yeah, actually, yes, we could.
Yeah, we could just create it. I mean, it does mean that we don't have a.
I mean, if
we
there are
don't have
multiple, we
dependencies.
should choose one. If there is none, we can do anything. If there are multiple, we should either choose one or error out.
I believe if in a perfect world, I would say we should first check if an SUT field is already available, because if, then the user provided the SUT setup.
That's right.
And if it's not, and we have multiple constructors, there should be a warning.
Right. So we should use context.report diagnostic and so on.
Yeah, maybe at a later time, but
Of course, yeah.
constructor. So we have the constructor, and now we could search for the parameters. Parameters, constructor, parameters, and what do we do? Select. We need
Do you
the
want
pair.
to generate the code for the constructor, or? I mean, I guess we could just start creating code right now.
Yeah, but we have, let's say we have, let's use the same interfaces that we had in our example. So we had an iLogger, we had an iMath, and public interface iUniverse, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have
Patrick complains that after 80 minutes we're finally starting to write code.
Oh, really? Oh, where's my Chrome here? What did people say? I also have to follow up a bit. Yeah, but like I said, it's the setup itself can be pretty tricky. Calculator. So let's do iLogger. And iMath.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we back here, I think what we need is a pair of type name and name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because ideally we should keep that name, or like append mock to it.
So we could do the name.
And Patrick wants to be clear that he wasn't complaining and just
no,
making an amusing comment.
All good. We could already capitalize it. I mean, I usually capitalize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to keep my fields lowercase.
Okay, then we do it your way. So we use the name, and the second is the type of that parameter. And here again, we can use this display string, and actually, I think I already have a get full name method for that.
Nice.
Which does basically just that.
Because this saves us from finding or adding the right using statements in the right places without conflicts.
Exactly. That that helps you working around that. Now we could generate code, I believe.
Yeah.
So we do. What do we do?
Yeah, I guess we need the namespace.
Okay, so we do source builder and line namespace. And here we use the test type namespace.
Yeah.
Containing namespace.
If it wasn't in the namespace, this would throw up in our face, but let's keep it like that.
And append line.
So a
partial class and here the name of the test type. And line and here. And here we do the rest of the work.
Exactly.
By the way, this is something I want to move to an extension method so badly, because what I would ideally want to write is something like test type and then extend partial and then have a delegate which lets me append line, etc.
Yeah. I mean, that's easy if you use the Roslyn syntax, generate the syntax. But I guess that's a different topic. So I guess for now...
That becomes easier with the Roslyn syntax. Or what?
Yeah. If you use the syntax factory stuff, this usually has some modification members as well, and you can just create extension methods that basically return this type, and then you can say with methods or with members or etc. And then format it all at once. But let's not do that now.
Maybe, but it's an interesting thing though. Maybe this can even be combined in a string and syntax model way. I don't know. Probably not.
I mean, you can always create a syntax tree from any string.
True. But you know what? I'm still unsure which is the better way. I mean, that how you did it with the Roslyn syntax model, I believe. We can just take another look. I mean, it's all correct and probably way more reusable and all. But if I look at it, I have no idea what happens.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the one big difference to using a string builder.
Yeah,
but on the other hand, with the string builder, at some point you start, I don't know, introducing a lot of parameters before, and sometimes if you're unsure about the, let's say we didn't name which type it is, then you use something like that, and you skip the spaces, and it's not exactly great.
But let's do it for a class right now, and
let's
keep on generating strings.
So here, I believe we should split things up here a little.
Mm-hmm.
And then for each parameter, parameters for each, we write
Guess-
here.
Yeah.
Say again?
I guess you can deconstruct in the for each as well.
Yeah, true. Deconstruct.
Like name and type name, I guess.
And then, so for now, 1, 2, oh my God, what was that? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have the type name.
Mm-hmm. Probably a private or protected.
Protected, yeah. Let's see. And we can immediately also
Fake it, yeah.
actually even do that, yeah. Fake it easy, fake type name. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's one angle bracket too much.
Colon.
Right.
That looks good actually already. Let's debug this thing.
Actually, what I just realized, I believe in one file you can only have one namespace, right?
What?
Or no, you can have multiple, I believe. Yeah. There was some issue that I believe I hit once. But I guess I just messed up using
Cycle
statements.
probably won't let you. Okay, what did we do? Test project.
I believe there is a for each.
But I thought I have
Oh, it's in the test project, right? Sorry. I thought it was in generator.
but yeah, I mean we kind of have a bootstrapping issue. So
Oh, does it depend? Does it depend on the test project?
no, but I'm building the whole solution.
Ah,
So let's just not add it to the source, and then it should be good. But now it might be optimized, and maybe we don't have access to the source builder. Let's see what happens. Okay, works.
mm-hmm.
But it's not a great way to actually read that.
You can do a copy value.
Do I want that?
No, but I believe it won't work. In like text edit.
Okay,
Nice.
so here's one mistake. This looks fine. The rest looks fine. But
Fine. Looks fine.
yeah. Then let's detach and add another one here. So this should be append line. So now we can try again. Okay, and let's see the generated code. So it looks like this.
Nice.
And now, just to also see it here, if we had a test. Oh, come on. What's wrong here? if we had a test, then we could now do something like, well, it's stupid, I know, but let's see that it runs. I mean, Rider obviously doesn't support this as of now, but it compiles. And if we had that, which should really be unresolvable, then we get a failure. Okay,
Right, so we can already use a generated code, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Then let's emit a constructor.
The subject.
Or do we? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's then just another line here.
Line, yeah.
And line, and it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Protected.
In this case, I believe a public. So that XUnit or something can actually create.
What is XUnit?
So that it actually can instantiate our test class. Needs to be public.
Why not protected?
I don't think XUnit, or does
XUnit can.
I'm not sure. Can it?
But XUnit instantiates it automatically, or what?
Yeah, I believe so. We can try it.
I mean, what I had in mind was really to use the implementation type name, then SUT, then new.
Yeah, that should work as well.
Type name. And
my idea was to do it in a constructor, but of course we can just do it inline as well. Then it can be protected as well.
Args arguments is select and then join. That's also one of the extension methods I always copy to not have.
Yes.
I mean,
string.join. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was writing some Python a couple of months ago. First time trying Python, and I was asking even a colleague and said, "Oh, come on, this line of code, it reads terrible," because I really like the way the functional way where you always have a transformation from parameters, then to select, then join, etc. But going back to the front just to understand what happened is terrible. No. It's terrible.
If you've ever coded in like Objective-C for like iOS programs, where you basically for method calls had to create this like bracket in the front, where you have like bracket, target, method name, closing bracket, like square brackets. So every time you added something to the invocation, you had to add square brackets at the beginning of your call statement, which is like hell, absolute hell. You would end up with 5 or 6 opening brackets.
Terrible. It's completely unreadable.
I believe we're missing a semicolon. And actually, we could use target type new here. Are we using C#9 already?
But we need to you mean this part, yeah?
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it actually, but probably.
Yeah. The logger. Oh no. Yeah, because we can't do that. We need to do that in a constructor because we can't reference other fields in here. So I guess this has to be in a constructor, yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, true. Let me think. Yeah, probably. We need to provide the constructor. Okay.
So we can
so-
basically put that to the beginning of the line. So yes, the sat and
What do you mean? Here?
yeah, and then just emit a one-line constructor afterwards, I guess.
Ooh, one-line constructor. How does this work? Public
Test type.name.
test type name. So SUT. Am I doing this right?
Yep. Then have our. I mean, now it comes down to code style. If you want to put the instance variables before the constructor or afterwards.
I would probably put it afterwards.
Yeah.
But as long as it works.
Yeah. And you're right. We can use, of course, we can make the variable or the instance variable protected. So the sut. Because I was thinking we were writing a constructor. So I guess my mind was already sleeping. Nice.
But it does.
Does it compile? Oh yeah, we're missing
Parentheses.
parentheses, right?
Well, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
It
Not
compiles.
It compiles at least, yeah. And I guess this is the point where I commit everything.
Yeah, we could also add some null checks everywhere that we try to resolve stuff from the compiler API, just for
Null check.
if implementation type is null continue, or you'd like to live dangerously.
Okay, so what's yours? Here we wanted to.
Yeah, in between you can write something like if implementation type is null continue.
Continue. Return.
Or return, yeah, in this case. And of course we can use is null instead of equals null.
By the way, this is something I wish C# would maybe I'm not exactly sure, but maybe this is a thing I would like C# to copy from Kotlin, because in Kotlin you can do this.
Yeah, return expressions.
Or
basically, this is called. I believe there is a proposal for that.
Okay.
Because this is exactly where like throw expressions would work.
Yeah. Right. It's not even far from that, right? Because my immediate thought when I saw this in Kotlin, I didn't immediately like it, and I thought, okay, is that great to have that the return statement now suddenly can be anywhere in a statement. So what I really like is, okay, here it's obvious. You can usually, if you select the return type, in this case void, you also get the return statements selected, and well, probably tooling can catch up with that. But I kind of like that this is very dominant, but throw expressions are already a counter argument to that.
So I guess I found the issue on .NET C# Lang, which is called champion return break and continue expressions, which is in project language version playing rejected, in milestone likely never. And I upvoted and harded it, but I guess it at least broke off. Continue and break. Nope.
Can you paste the link?
Actually, I don't have access to the chat because I'm only a guest in your session, but I can post
can
it
paste it in the
in
private
Slack.
and I paste it in the comments.
That's an idea.
Okay, and here. So for the rest. Oh, the scrolling banner is really fast. Okay.
But yeah, that's also something you learn from like working with the Roslyn APIs. It's like what kind of things are statements, what are expressions, what can you use in expressions, and where can you use statements. That's quite interesting.
Turn.
Yeah.
If no constructor is available, then we can just instantiate it, right?
Yeah.
But I wanna.
I believe then arguments is 0, right?
Yeah, but I must say I wanna restructure that as well. Are you okay if I move the constructor after the fields?
Of course. That's
Okay.
where I would put it as well.
Okay, then I just misunderstood before. So we put it there. The constructor right after SUT. We can take parameters and constructors with us to here. And let's do it this way. By the way, that's also something, and I gotta show you. One of my colleagues, he would beat me for this, but I gotta say I really like the for each extension method. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Because it's for the same reason. It's way more readable. For each here.
Yeah, especially if you're also using like entity framework, doing some queries, doing more stuff than one.
I mean, especially in performance critical code, and we are writing performance critical code here. It's actually bad, but I mean, this is an example, right? So
Yeah.
maybe at some point could talk about making this a production thing, but at this point I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Parameters for each, then this stuff.
You could also join it with new lines.
We could also join with new lines. Yeah, true. So then
Which of course defeats the performance purpose of using a string builder, but now that I think of it.
Fields, parameters, select. And here we have, this is the
type name.
What was it? Name and we should give that a
we
name.
Should probably type. Yeah.
X.name. Here it's x.type again. So then we have that, and then we can even. Yeah, it defeats the purpose of string builder very much. But yeah, come on, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is annoying with string builder as well. Okay, so then we can remove that. And is there maybe even an append line enumerable? No.
No. I mean, you can write an extension method, but
Yeah, you would laugh, but actually for my generators, I have that. Yeah. Join and then environment, not encoding, environment dot new line, like so. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
This reads not bad. This one we can remove. Here we need the string interpolation.
Okay. I mean, we still have a lot of compiler warnings.
Because of the construct
Null.
here,
Yeah.
right? And that is, we take that maybe and put it here.
But you can also later write constructor question mark dot parameters, and if not, then just use string empty.
Okay, let's try.
Or
Question mark?
exactly. Then the arguments can be parameters question mark dot select, and then at the end of this line you can add like question mark string empty, and the same for the fields.
Multiple enumeration. Yeah, always.
Of course.
And here, question mark 2.
Yeah.
Here or at the end?
At the beginning.
At the beginning, yeah. Same for me.
So what does it
And here,
because
another
it's
question: is it for you? Is it enumerable empty? Oops.
Enumerable empty or array empty?
Or array empty? Array empty? Or I gotta say, I always use this. But yeah,
at least array empty. At least array empty, I know is cached. I hope enumerable empty does something similar.
I would assume so. But let's check. First of all.
So let's do an array empty of string.
What type is it? String? Yeah, exactly.
So,
Now let's check really quickly because I'm also curious. String. How is that implemented? Is anyone swearing at us already because we don't just try it in Visual Studio?
No, we actually got the suggestion to make it really evil, so and get rid of all the for eaches.
Of all for eaches, yeah. Empty
partition.
But this looks okay.
Yeah, it's singleton somewhere that is likely cached. So at least it's cached.
And for this is also cached, I believe.
Yeah. Maybe we should stop the banners, or do you want to continue
that? Okay.
Okay.
So like
now
that.
We have Now the rest of the compiler warnings. What are those?
Where?
The selects.
No. No. This is just object allocation. No warning.
Oh, okay.
So let me see. Let's those off. I don't know where.
It's not like we doing anything performance critical like compilation.
Application. Well, the warnings are warranted, I must say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Okay, so does it still compile? Does it do what it's supposed to do? No.
okay. Yeah, my enumerable method here.
Nice.
Yeah, looks good.
Now, if we open it in an editor that supports source generators, like I'm not sure, does VS Code already support it? I'm
Hard
not
to
sure
say.
actually. We may need to restart OmniSharp.
How exactly?
Command Shift P. OmniSharp restart. Just to make sure we have the correct references.
Okay, and now here.
So in
No,
the test, do we have access to the logger? So this .logger, or is that? Yeah, we don't have a methods, right? So we have this .logger.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now if we just add the universe, because we always depend on the universe.
Yeah. Universe.
Okay. We may need to save.
It's already there.
Oh, it's already there. Nice. This .universe.
Then we could have a call to. Yeah, this is using Fake It Easy. A call to universe. I mean,
we don't have any methods. But I guess if you write a call to universe, it I believe it sets up a call for like all the methods that could be used. But yeah, whatever.
Well, would that work? No.
No, it's not in the interface.
Yeah,
like
but from this point, it would be more about Fake It Easy.
The mock object, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this works.
So nice. That works. That's nice. So I guess you can commit it, and since we're already 2 hours in, I guess we can call it a day or a night.
Call it a good night. Let me see. Add test setup generator. I mean, I will clean up afterwards a bit and how do you say, revive the sync method generator. But for now, I would just commit and push. Yeah, plenty of stuff that how this can be improved, right? So you could have it configurable, which mocking framework should be used, using the interface, using a marker attribute and all that. More comments. Append join. What was that?
Oh. Append join. I believe I missed that.
Where is it here? And no append join.
Nope. Probably also one of the extension methods that probably everyone has and then doesn't realize it's actually an extension method.
That is something I loved so much about ReSharper. I kind of missed that or checking if in Rider this works as well. What we had, and this was an idea of my previous company, to have a very or my mouse stopped working, to have a very decent background color for extension methods, so that you, even by just reading your code, you can see this is an extension method.
That's good.
That was really helpful, because you, I mean, for link expressions, maybe not, but for string builder, for instance, you would then see append join, for instance, is an extension method.
And usually, so I ran into interesting situations where like the framework actually added the methods. So you would need the extension methods, but of course, if you have an extension method, it can actually be called on a null object. So if you have like a null check in the extension method, it's like, okay. And then the framework adds something, your code still compiles, but all of a sudden you get like null reference exceptions. So also one of the reasons I'm really happy about the nullable reference types, or actually non-nullable types.
Yeah.
So
was cool.
That was a nice coding session.
Yeah,
I
really,
hope you guys
really
enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. I hope you did. Thanks also for agreeing so short on notice, just in the morning, right?
I believe, yeah. Just
what would be really interesting, I mean, if you're no pressure at that moment, but if you ever are interested, we could check if we can improve this template project a little, to have the packaging, etc., also in there. I don't know, but yeah,
I could have a look at that. Yeah, maybe not this week, but
for now, I'm really also good to see how it works in VS Code. So currently, what I always did was to check out on my Windows machine then, and see if it works there. But yeah, that's really also crucial for the IDE part, right? And
right, yeah.
For the source generators to provide that information in code completion. And Visual Studio and ReSharper seem to work with that already. Writer probably takes a little more. What was that? Append, join.
Yeah, so apparently that API is not in NetStandard 2.0, which we used for Analyzer, but likely in newer .NET Core versions. Yeah, so the sad thing is I believe analyzers have to work on both .NET Framework and .NET Core, if I'm not mistaken.
Analyzers?
Yeah.
You mean also source generators?
Yeah.
They must target NetStandard 2. And nothing else.
So we can't use any fancy new .NET Core API.
No.
Unless like Visual Studio itself moves to .NET Core.
No, and that was also one of the gotchas for me. I mean, I accidentally had it targeting NetCore app 2.0 or 3.0. I don't remember, and it didn't work. It didn't work at all. I was confused. Damn, what happened? Project almost looks like this. Looks the same as from the samples. I think at that point I didn't check out your sample. So it does need to target either .NET NetStandard 2.0 or 1.0 even, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so it has to work on .NET Framework. So
one thing. There's one thing I still want to point out if you work with that, and that is you should be aware of that. Some source generators, from my point of view, have two big scenarios, and that is one, to remove some runtime work, like they could for dependency injection. Am I sharing my screen? Yeah. And like we did with generating code that is then immediately used in other places, like the builder methods or this test setup. Now, one thing though is if anything with your code generator goes wrong, then by default you get a warning, and that we could, for instance, throw an exception here. If I throw an exception, and I need to make a slight modification and remove that. Now, if we run our code again, then you can see there's a warning. And then later we get this exception, logger is not available. Okay, yeah, logger is not available, but the reason actually for logger not being available is that that our source generator has thrown an exception, like here. And the bad thing, you dropped out.
Yeah, looks like I dropped out of the call.
And the bad thing is, or how far did you get it? What I said? Or
yeah, that you throw exceptions and basically it just logs a warning, and then basically the rest of the code won't compile. So you're basically lost in a sea of error messages because half of your code doesn't compile. You may miss this one warning that there is like a generator failure. But yeah.
And the catch here is normally you would use this property, warning as error. Normally this should be sufficient. But apparently you have to make it MS build warnings as errors. So I also reported that. And then if something goes wrong, then you really see that the source generator has thrown an exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to remember.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the last thing I wanted to say.
Yeah. I believe there are two questions open. Yeah, Net Standard and Net Core App versioning is interesting because basically until Net Standard 2.0, everything is also available in .NET Framework. So in Net Standard 2.1, which is basically hopefully the last version of .NET Standard, they basically threw in everything that's like .NET Core and Mono compatible. So we will have all the .NET Core specific APIs that also previously existed in there. So that's why there's .NET Core 2.0 API in .NET Standard 2.1, which is not in .NET Standard 2.0. So yeah, I know it's confusing, and hopefully with .NET 5 we should only have .NET 5, 6, and so on, and be done with Net Standard. Hopefully, at least that's my hope. And yeah, we can't currently target anything other than Net Standard 2.0 for source generators and Roslyn analyzers, solely for the reason that Roslyn, or at least the compiler platform, is meant to be run on .NET Framework and .NET Core. I have no idea what the plan is, but yeah, Visual Studio is still a .NET Framework product. Also, a lot of the compiler platform needs to run on .NET Framework. For example, in like classic ASP.NET application, all the like in IIS compilation basically hosts Roslyn. Yeah, maybe it doesn't have to run analyzes in there, but okay. So at least Roslyn needs to work on .NET Framework for various reasons, and people are using it on that. So also anything that plugs into Roslyn should maybe support .NET Framework. Hopefully, maybe with all these out-of-process compilations, like we've seen, like VBCS compiler, etc. Hopefully, we will be able to move forward, right? Because there are a lot of new APIs in .NET Core. There are performance enhancements, so it could help make the builds faster. So I'm hopeful there will be progress. But again, yeah, it's a large ecosystem, and yeah, I don't care. Yeah, if you can ship a NuGet package and only use it for yourself, I guess you can do what you want. Okay.
Okay, cool. So thanks again, Martin, for joining.
Yeah, thanks really for organizing.
Really fun doing pair streaming with you. Okay, and thanks everyone for watching. If you like, check out the the repository, I mean. And let's see if we do a follow up on that. But I guess at least from now, I think the main things, the main hurdles we've covered and kind of showed what you can do, how to work with them, etc. So all the ceremony stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching. I will hit end broadcast and have a good night. Bye bye.
See you.